Hey guys, tonight we're going to explore the strange, often counterintuitive, and sometimes downright dangerous world of Victorian insomnia cures. Imagine it's the late 19th century. You're lying awake in a heavy, ornate bed, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke and damp wool. The silence of your room is a heavy blanket, punctuated only by the relentless ticking of a mantel clock and the distant, muffled clatter of a horse-drawn carriage on cobblestones. You've tried counting sheep, but they just seem to be mocking you in their woolly indifference. Frankly, between the lack of fresh air and the medical wisdom of the day, you probably wouldn't survive the treatment, let alone the sleeplessness. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps the channel find other people who appreciate these quiet, rambling histories. And while you're at it, post your city or country and the local time in the comments. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shift your weight for what feels like the 100th time, the starched linen sheets crackling beneath you. They are cold at first, then almost immediately clammy. Your bed is a fortress of mahogany and damask. It's tall, carved headboard, casting a monstrous shadow on the wall from the gaslight filtering through your window. The window itself is sealed shut, as you've been told it must be. Outside is the London night, and with it comes the dreaded miasma, the invisible, foul-smelling vapor believed to carry disease. So you lie here, stewing in your own recycled breath, convinced it's for your own good. The room is full. That's the only word for it. Every surface is draped, covered, or occupied. Heavy velvet curtains, so thick they could stop a stray musket ball, hang over the windows, their dusty tassels brushing the floor. A thick, patterned carpet covers the floorboards, muffling any sound and trapping a generation of dust. The mantelpiece is a crowded city of porcelain figurines, a heavy clock, and silver-framed photographs of stern-faced relatives who look like they never had a moment of frivolous sleeplessness in their lives. This fashion, this fear of empty space, is a sign of your comfortable middle-class status. But right now, it feels like the walls are closing in. All this clutter, all this fabric, just seems to absorb the silence and make it heavier. It's a bit of a joke, really. You've spent a fortune making your home look prosperous, and all you've achieved is creating the perfect environment for dust mites and existential dread. You stare at the ceiling, where the faint light catches the elaborate plasterwork. Your mind is a churning sea of small anxieties. Did you remember to instruct the cook about the fish for tomorrow? Was that comment you made at dinner perceived as witty or simply impertinent? And of course, the great, looming question, why can't you simply sleep? This isn't just a bad night, it's becoming a pattern. The days are draining into one long, gray, exhausting blur. They call it neurasthenia, this condition, a new term for an old problem, a sickness of the nerves. Doctors say it's a product of the modern age, of steam engines and telegraphs and the frantic pace of city life. Your nerves, they explain, are like frayed telegraph wires, carrying too many messages, too many shocks to the system. Historians still argue whether this widespread nervousness was a genuine epidemic of anxiety fueled by rapid industrial change, or a fashionable diagnosis, a status symbol for the leisure classes who had the time and money to cultivate their delicate sensibilities. For you, lying here, the debate is meaningless. Whatever its name, its grip is real. It's a physical weight in your chest, a buzzing behind your eyes. You can hear the city breathing around you. The infamous London fog, the pea super, has rolled in. It's not just water vapor. It's a thick, acrid cocktail of smoke from a million coal fires, factory emissions, and the damp chill from the Thames. You can taste it at the back of your throat, a metallic, sulfurous tang that has crept through every crack and keyhole in the house. This is the air you're breathing, a visible, palpable pollution that smarts the eyes and cloaks the entire world in a grimy, yellow-brown haze. It's a well-known fact that these fogs could be so thick that people got lost walking home, and livestock were known to suffocate right in their fields. And you're supposed to find serene slumber in the middle of it. It's almost comical. The clock on the mantel strikes 2. Each chime is a small, bronze hammer tapping against your frayed nerves. You've been in this bed for 4 hours. 4 hours of staring into the gloom, listening to the house settle, feeling the vast, lonely emptiness of the night. Tomorrow, you will have to do something about this. You can't go on like this. You'll have to see the doctor. He'll have ideas. In the Victorian age, doctors always have ideas. You just have a sinking feeling you're not going to like them. For now, you close your eyes again, focusing on the weight of your woolen blankets, trying to will your worrying mind into submission. But sleep remains a distant, foreign country, and you don't have a passport. The morning light is a cruel, gray thing, filtering through the grime on the window pane and illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. You've managed a few hours of fragmented, unsatisfying sleep, and your head feels like it's stuffed with damp cotton. True to your desperate promise from the lonely hours of the night, you make your way to the doctor's surgery. His office is on a respectable street, the brass plaque on the door polished to a gleaming shine. Inside, the air is thick with the competing smells of carbolic soap, old leather, and that faint, sweetish odor of decay that seems to cling to places of medicine. The room is as cluttered as your own, but with a scientific purpose. Anatomical charts line the walls. A skeleton grins from one corner, and glass-fronted cabinets are filled with terrifyingly sharp-looking instruments. Dr. Barlow is a man whose physical form seems to endorse his own advice. He is stout, with a round, pink face and an air of absolute, unshakable certainty. He listens to your tale of woe, tapping his fingers together, his expression one of a man who has heard this exact story 1,000 times and has already solved it before you've finished your first sentence. He nods sagely. Neurasthenia, he says, tasting the word. A modern affliction, to be sure. But then he leans forward, a glint in his eye. However, the root of these nervous complaints is rarely in the nerves themselves. It is almost always a matter of digestion. He diagnoses you with dyspepsia. A sluggish stomach, he explains, is the true culprit. It creates morbid vapors and agitates the entire system, sending confusing signals up the vagus nerve to the brain, preventing it from achieving the placid state required for slumber. The answer isn't to soothe the mind, but to subdue the stomach. And the way to do that is with food. A very specific and very large amount of it. You were perhaps expecting a tonic, a pill, or at least some advice on your mental state. You were not expecting to be put on a diet that sounds like it was designed to prepare you for hibernation. He hands you a list of instructions, written in a confident, looping script. Your new regimen is to be built around foods that are simple, heavy, and easily assimilated. Boiled mutton, poached chicken, and steamed white fish are to be your staples. These should be accompanied by potatoes, mashed to a pulp, and root vegetables boiled until they offer no resistance whatsoever. Bread is acceptable, but only if it's stale. In fact, he recommends twice-baked bread, or zwieback, which is so utterly devoid of moisture it practically turns to dust in your mouth. The theory, he explains, is that these bland, stolid foods require little effort from your beleaguered stomach. They are predictable. There's no excitement here, no challenge. And that is precisely the point. The forbidden list is much longer and far more interesting. Spices of any kind are out. No pepper, no mustard, and certainly nothing exotic from the colonies. Pickles, vinegar, and sharp sauces are considered gastric irritants. Rich cheeses, flaky pastries, and anything fried are, of course, strictly prohibited. You must also avoid what he calls excitable vegetables, things like cucumber and most greens, which are believed to produce gas and agitate the gut. Medical historians debate whether these profoundly bland diets were based on any real physiological theory or were more of a form of social and moral control designed to enforce a plain, passionless existence by quite literally removing any taste from life. That evening, you sit down to your first prescribed meal. On your plate is a pale slab of boiled cod, its white flakes separating in the steam. Next to it is a mound of mashed turnips and a slice of dry, grayish bread. It is the culinary equivalent of a Quaker meeting. You eat dutifully, chewing each mouthful with a sort of grim determination. The doctor's orders were to eat a hearty portion, to ensure the stomach has plenty of work to do. As you eat, a strange torpor does begin to settle over you. It's not the pleasant drowsiness of a satisfying meal. It's the heavy, sluggish feeling of being physically weighed down. It's like you've swallowed a small, warm cannonball. But the doctor's final instruction is the most baffling. Just before bed, you are to consume a final, substantial snack. A large bowl of bread and milk, perhaps, or a thick, gelatinous gruel made from arrowroot. The idea is to give your stomach a final, demanding task that will keep it occupied all night, leaving your brain in peace. So you stand in your nightclothes in the kitchen, spooning down a lukewarm, semi-sweet paste that coats your tongue and sits like a stone in your gut. You feel less like a patient being cured and more like a prize goose being fattened for the Christmas market. You trudge upstairs, your stomach gurgling in protest. You climb into your fortress of a bed, feeling bloated and deeply uncomfortable. As you lie there in the dark, you have to admit your mind isn't racing with anxieties anymore. It's too busy being distracted by the active, churning rebellion happening in your digestive tract. You do feel drowsy in a way. It's the lethargy of a body that has been overwhelmed by sheer stodge. It is not the gentle, peaceful descent into dreams you were hoping for. It's more like a chemical KO, delivered by a bowl of wallpaper paste. You have solved your sleeplessness, perhaps, by simply making it impossible for your body to do anything but lie still and digest. And this, you realize with a sinking heart, is only the first cure. The boiled mutton diet has, unsurprisingly, failed to deliver the promised nights of tranquil slumber. You are still waking in the small, lonely hours, but now with the added discomfort of indigestion. So, it is time to address the other great terror of the Victorian bedroom, the air itself. Your doctor, upon hearing of your continued troubles, pivots his theory with the seamless confidence of a seasoned politician. If it is not the stomach, he declares, it must be the atmosphere. The quality of the air you breathe while you sleep is paramount. He gives you a stern lecture on the twin dangers of the night, the deadly outdoor miasma and the equally perilous indoor buildup of your own poisonous exhalations. You are now faced with a seemingly impossible balancing act. On one hand, you must avoid the night air at all costs. This miasma, a term encompassing a whole universe of airborne fears, is thought to rise from damp earth, rotting vegetation, and the general filth of the city. It's a phantom menace, blamed for everything from cholera and typhoid to simple colds, and, of course, nervous afflictions like yours. This is why you've been keeping your bedroom windows sealed shut, creating that stuffy, suffocating environment we talked about. It's a mainstream and deeply ingrained belief, the 19th century equivalent of avoiding gluten. You would no sooner throw open your window at midnight than you would invite a family of rats to dinner. On the other hand, the doctor warns, a perfectly sealed room is a death trap of a different sort. As you sleep, You exhale carbonic acid, carbon dioxide. This vitiated air, he explains with grim relish, is a poison. It slowly fills the room, displacing the life-giving oxygen. As you rebreathe this tainted atmosphere, your vitality is sapped, your blood becomes sluggish, and your brain is starved, leading to restless sleep, nightmares, and a general sense of malaise. So, the room must be ventilated. You must somehow allow fresh air, and while keeping the bad night air out. It's a classic Victorian conundrum, a problem created by one set of fears, to be solved by a solution that runs headfirst into another. Your first task is to assess your bedroom's existing ventilation, which is to say, its fireplace. A good fire, you are told, is an excellent ventilator. The draft up the chimney sucks the foul, used-up air out of the room. The problem, of course, is that a roaring fire in a bedroom is often too hot and a safety hazard. So, you must learn to manage a low fire, one that smolders gently all night, providing just enough of a current to draw the air upwards. This involves a whole new set of chores, banking the coals just right, ensuring the flue is clear, and hoping a stray spark doesn't set your voluminous bed curtains alight. It's not exactly a relaxing bedtime routine, but the fireplace alone is not enough. You need to admit fresh air. Since opening the window is out of the question, you must turn to technology. This is where you encounter the weird and wonderful world of Victorian ventilation gadgets. You might purchase a Sheringham valve, a small, hopper-like vent installed high on the wall. It has a flap that can be angled to direct incoming air upwards towards the ceiling, so the cold, potentially miasma-laden air can mix with the warmer air of the room before it descends upon your delicate, sleeping form. Installing it involves a workman drilling a hole straight through your exterior wall, a process that feels deeply counterintuitive. Another popular option is the Tobin tube. This is a vertical pipe, often ornately decorated to look like a pedestal for a plant pot, that runs up the wall from a vent at floor level. Air from outside enters at the bottom, travels up the tube, and is released near the ceiling. The idea is the same. The air is introduced high up, avoiding a direct and dangerous draft. Your bedroom corner now hosts a large metal tube, a bizarre monument to your fear of both fresh and stagnant air. Some historians argue that these elaborate systems were more about the appearance of scientific living than actual effectiveness, a way for homeowners to feel they were actively combating the invisible dangers of the modern world. It's a bit like buying an expensive air purifier today. You're not entirely sure it's working, but it makes you feel proactive. One fringe, and frankly slightly desperate, method you read about involves hanging a wet sheet in front of a slightly ajar window. The theory is that the damp cloth will filter the incoming air, catching the noxious particles of the miasma while allowing the purified oxygen to pass through. You try this one night, propping the window open a mere inch and draping a damp linen sheet over the opening. The result is a persistent, chilly draft and a fine mist that settles on everything, making the room feel like the inside of a cave. The air might be cleaner, who can tell? But the damp chill seeps into your bones, and you spend the night shivering. You are now sleeping in a room that is a carefully controlled, yet deeply uncomfortable, scientific experiment. You have a smoldering fire in the grate, a metal tube in the corner, and a valve in the wall. You lie in your bed, hyper-aware of every slight current of air. Is that a life-giving zephyr from your Tobin tube, or a death-dealing miasma sneaking past your defenses? The air feels colder, certainly, but no less oppressive. Your focus has simply shifted from a war in your stomach to the battle for the atmosphere in your bedroom. You are still awake, but now you have a whole new set of invisible enemies to worry about. The only thing that seems to be getting a good night's rest is the family of dust mites, who are no doubt thrilled with the new, drafty conditions. The dietary regimen has left you bloated. The ventilation project has left you chilled. And a good night's sleep remains as elusive as ever. Your long-suffering doctor, perhaps running low on physiological explanations, now turns to the mind, but in a very specific Victorian way. The overstimulated mind, he pronounces, stroking his chin, cannot rest. You are, perhaps, reading the wrong sort of material before bed. Thrilling novels, political commentary, sensational newspaper reports, these things are poison to the neurasthenic brain at night. His new prescription is not a drug, but a carefully curated library of tedium. You are to read yourself to sleep, not with something you enjoy, but with something so profoundly dull it effectively anesthetizes your imagination. This wasn't just folk wisdom. It was a well-established medical theory. The brain, like a muscle, could be overworked. Exciting narratives, with their cliffhangers and emotional roller coasters, were seen as mental stimulants, the equivalent of drinking a strong cup of coffee before trying to nap. The solution was to find literature that was informative but utterly devoid of passion, narrative tension, or anything that might provoke a strong emotional response. You are, in essence, being prescribed boredom. Your first assignment is to acquire a copy of a book like John Lewis Mark Garson's The Vade Mecum of the Latinist, a collection of Latin phrases, or perhaps a dense agricultural journal detailing the latest advancements in crop rotation in Lincolnshire. You find yourself at a dusty bookshop, seeking out titles you would normally walk past without a second glance. The bookseller, a man who looks like he's made of parchment and tweed, seems to understand immediately. Something soporific, he asks with a knowing look, leading you to a dim corner of the shop. Here lie the forgotten tomes, dense genealogical histories of minor aristocratic families, multi-volume treatises on freshwater mollusks, and sermons from long-dead country parsons. You select a book titled A History of British Ferns. It seems perfect. It's thick, it's heavy, and the illustrations, while meticulously drawn, are all just slightly different shades of green. That night, you prop yourself up in bed, your room now perfectly ventilated and your stomach full of gruel, and you open your new purchase. The gas lamp hisses softly beside you as you begin to read. The common polypody, or Polypodium vulgar, is a perennial fern, characterized by its pinnatifid fronds which grow from a creeping, rhizomatous rootstock often covered in brown, scaly trichomes. Your eyes glaze over almost immediately. The language is a dense thicket of Latin classifications and dry, technical descriptions. The author's passion for ferns, if it ever existed, has been thoroughly pressed and dried out of the text. You read about sporangia and indusia, about fiddleheads and croziers. You learn to distinguish between a Dryopterus and a Polisticum. It is, without a doubt, the most boring thing you have ever read. And for a little while, it seems to work. The sheer weight of the jargon pushes your own anxieties out of your head. Your mind, instead of racing with worries, is simply blank, numbed by botanical minutiae. It's like a form of intellectual quicksand. You manage a few pages before your eyelids feel like they have lead weights attached. The book slips from your grasp and thuds onto the duvet. You blow out the lamp and settle down, a faint image of a fern's rhizome imprinted on the back of your retinas. But the sleep that comes is shallow, and you wake an hour later. The problem, you realize, is that the book hasn't relaxed you. It has simply stunned you into a temporary stupor. Over the next few nights, you experiment with other forms of literary anesthesia. You try reading parliamentary records, specifically a lengthy debate on the Corn Laws. The dense prose, filled with economic statistics and political posturing, is almost as effective as the ferns. You learn far more than you ever wanted to know about tariffs on imported grain. You also attempt to read poetry, but only the most turgid, moralizing epics. Forget Keats or Shelley. You are reading things like The Course of Time by Robert Pollock, a 10-book epic poem about the history of the world from a stern, Calvinist perspective. It's less a work of art and more of a theological endurance test. The rhymes are predictable, the meter is plodding, and the subject matter is relentlessly grim. It's the kind of poetry that makes you feel bad for the trees that were sacrificed to print it. Historians are still debating the exact line between improving literature and soporific literature in the Victorian mind. Were these dull books prescribed purely for their lack of stimulation, or was there also a moral dimension to it? Was the goal to bore the patient into sleep, or to fill their mind with wholesome, non-frivolous thoughts as they drifted off? For you, the distinction is academic. The result is the same. The process of forcing yourself to read these texts is so draining, so utterly joyless, that it adds another layer of dread to your bedtime routine. You find a quirky, lesser-known example of this trend. Books written with this specific purpose in mind. You discover a slim volume, anonymously published, called Thoughts for the Sleepless. It contains a series of short, incredibly mundane essays on topics like the manufacture of pins, the history of the button, and on the composition of mortar. Each essay is a masterpiece of uninspired prose. The essay on pins, for example, details the process of drawing the wire, cutting it, sharpening the point, and attaching the head with all the narrative flair of a shipping manifest. It is deliberately, masterfully boring. It's a strange, almost comical testament to how desperate people were for a cure. They were so starved for sleep that an entire micro-genre of anti-entertainment was created just for them. Lying in bed, reading a detailed account of how mortar is made, you can't help but chuckle. The cure for your overstimulated modern mind is to learn about something mind-numbingly pre-modern. It's a peculiar kind of therapy, and so far, all it's done is make you an unwilling expert on the most boring subjects imaginable. The library of tedium has failed. You now know more than any sane person should about 19th century agricultural practices and the finer points of fern identification, but restorative sleep remains a stubbornly distant shore. The thought of another night with a parliamentary report is enough to make you weep. So you decide to abandon the intellectual and the dietary and turn to something older, something more rooted in the earth, herbal remedies. This isn't a fringe, wild woman in the woods sort of folk medicine. This is a respectable, middle-class pursuit. Gardening was a popular Victorian pastime, and the use of herbs from one's own garden for minor ailments was common, seen as both wholesome and economical. Your first port of call is the hop pillow. Hops, the flowers of the hop plant primarily used in brewing beer, have been known for their sedative properties for centuries. The story goes that King George III, plagued by his own famous bouts of illness and insomnia, used a pillow stuffed with hops to help him sleep. If it's good enough for the king, you reason, it's certainly good enough for you. You procure a bag of dried hops from a local brewer. They are strange, papery little cones, light as air, with a pungent, earthy, and slightly bitter smell. It's the smell of a warm, sleepy pub, concentrated and dry. The task is simple enough. You empty the feathers from one of your smaller pillows and carefully stuff it with the dried hops. It's a messy job. The hops are brittle and crumble easily, releasing little puffs of yellow pollen, called lupulin, that dust your hands and clothes. This lupulin powder is where the sedative chemicals are most concentrated. The resulting pillow is lumpy and noisy. Every time you move your head, it makes a dry, rustling, crinkly sound, like a small animal nesting in a pile of dead leaves. It is not the soft, yielding comfort you're used to. Still, you place it on your bed, a fragrant, bumpy little hope for the night ahead. That evening, you lay your head down on your new creation. The scent is immediate and overpowering. It's not unpleasant, exactly, but it's relentless. It fills your nostrils and seems to coat the inside of your mouth. You lie perfectly still, trying to get used to the strange texture and the crinkling sound. The aroma is supposed to be soothing, lulling your senses into a state of calm. For the first 20 minutes, it does seem to have a mild, stupefying effect. The sheer novelty of it, combined with the strong herbal scent, distracts you from your usual anxious thoughts. But the effect soon wears off, leaving you with just a lumpy pillow and a bedroom that smells like the back room of a brewery. It's another classic case of the cure being almost as irritating as the condition. Undeterred, you move on to herbal teas or tisanes. Your gardening books and domestic manuals are full of recipes. Lavender, chamomile, and valerian root are the holy trinity of sleepy time herbs. You start with chamomile, a gentle and popular choice. You have some growing in your small herb garden. It's cheerful, daisy-like flowers, a stark contrast to the grim business of insomnia. You pick the flower heads, dry them, and steep them in hot water. The resulting tea is a pale, golden liquid with a faint, apple-like aroma. You sip it slowly before bed. It's pleasant, warming, and comforting. It doesn't knock you out, but it does create a small ritual of calm, a gentle punctuation mark at the end of a long day. It feels like a genuine act of self-care, unlike the punitive diets or baffling ventilation projects. Next, you try lavender. You snip some of the fragrant purple spikes, hang them to dry, and then use the buds to make a tea. The taste is intensely floral, almost soapy, a bit of an acquired taste. You also try placing little sachets of dried lavender under your pillow, a far more pleasant and less lumpy alternative to the hop experiment. The clean, sweet scent is undeniably relaxing, though its power to actually induce sleep is debatable. The real heavy hitter of the herbal world, however, is valerian root. This is the one you approach with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Unlike the pleasant flowers of chamomile and lavender, valerian is all about the root. You have to dig it up, clean it, and dry it. The smell is challenging. To put it politely, dried valerian root smells strongly of old, dirty socks. It's a pungent, earthy, and frankly quite unpleasant odor. There's a quirky historical tidbit that the scent is notoriously attractive to cats, much like catnip, and is also said to have been used by the legendary Pied Piper of Hamelin to lure away the rats. Standing in your kitchen, holding this foul-smelling root, you can well believe it. You chop a piece of the dried root and brew it into a tea. The process fills your kitchen with the dirty sock aroma. You hold your nose and take a sip. The taste is as bad as the smell, but you drink it down, hoping for a miracle. Valerian contains compounds that are believed to have a sedative effect on the central nervous system, and it has a long history of use for anxiety and sleep disorders. Historians still argue about its true efficacy, with some dismissing it as a placebo and others pointing to a long tradition of anecdotal success. Lying in bed that night, the strange taste still lingering in your mouth, you do feel a certain heaviness, a dulling of the sharp edges of your anxiety. It's a more profound effect than chamomile or lavender, but it comes with a significant sensory cost. You drift into a fitful, dream-heavy sleep, unsure if you were sedated by the herb or simply rendered unconscious by the smell. You're learning that in the Victorian quest for sleep, you often have to trade one form of discomfort for another. The herbal remedies have offered a fleeting, fragrant kind of comfort, but nothing close to a cure. The hop pillow now resides in a cupboard, occasionally making its presence known with a faint brewery smell, and the valerian root is reserved for moments of true desperation. Your sleeplessness has become a consuming topic of conversation, and soon you hear the siren song of a new, exciting, and thoroughly modern solution: patent medicines. These are the bottled, branded, and aggressively advertised cure-alls that promise to solve any and every ailment of the human body. And they are absolutely everywhere. You see their advertisements plastered on the sides of buildings, on omnibuses, and filling the columns of every newspaper and magazine you pick up. They have bold, confident names. Dr. Kilmer's Swamproot, Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup, Hamlin's Wizard Oil. The ads are works of persuasive art, featuring dramatic before and after illustrations, heartfelt testimonials from miraculously cured customers, and vague but impressive-sounding scientific claims. They speak directly to your suffering, promising a boon to the sleepless, rest for the weary brain, and nature's balm for troubled nerves. In a world of often ineffective and unpleasant medical treatments, the patent medicine offers a simple, appealing alternative, a spoonful of hope from a bottle. You find yourself in a chemist's shop, a place that is rapidly becoming more of a retail store than a traditional apothecary. The shelves are groaning with colorful boxes and distinctively shaped bottles, all competing for your attention. The sheer variety is dizzying. There are syrups, tonics, pills, powders, and plasters, each claiming to be the one true answer to your problem. This is a largely unregulated industry. Manufacturers are not required to list their ingredients, and they can make whatever claims they wish about their product's effectiveness. It's the Wild West of medicine, and you are a weary traveler looking for a safe town. Your eye is drawn to a product specifically marketed for nervous disorders and insomnia. Let's call it Dr. Barton's Celebrated Nerve Tonic. The box features a serene-looking woman sleeping peacefully in her bed, a beatific smile on her face. The text promises that it is made from a secret blend of natural botanicals and harmless modern compounds. It sounds reassuring. It sounds scientific. You purchase a bottle. Back home, you examine your prize. The bottle is made of dark green glass, making it look serious and medicinal. The label is ornate, covered in elegant script and official-looking seals. The instructions tell you to take 1 tablespoon in a little water before retiring for the night. You uncork the bottle and give it a sniff. It has a sweet, slightly alcoholic, and vaguely medicinal smell. You pour a spoonful. The liquid is thick and syrupy, a dark brown color. You take your dose, grimacing slightly at the cloying sweetness. You head to bed, feeling a familiar mixture of hope and skepticism. You lie in the dark, waiting. After about 30 minutes, a pleasant, warming sensation begins to spread through your limbs. The buzzing anxiety in your mind seems to soften, its sharp edges blurring. A gentle, fuzzy drowsiness creeps over you. It's a far more powerful and decisive effect than the valerian tea. Your thoughts, which usually race and tangle, now seem to float by slowly, losing their power to distress you. Before you know it, you are sinking into a deep, heavy, and profound sleep. You wake the next morning feeling groggy and a little hungover, but you have slept. You slept for 8 solid hours, without waking once. It feels like a miracle. For the first time in months, you feel genuinely rested. Dr. Barton's Nerve Tonic is a triumph. You take it again the next night, and the night after that, and each time, it delivers you into the sweet oblivion you've been craving. You become a believer. You recommend it to a friend who also suffers from nerves. What you don't know, of course, is what you're actually drinking. Remember that reference to harmless modern compounds. That's where the secret lies. Unlisted on that beautiful label are the active ingredients. Your Celebrated Nerve Tonic contains a substantial amount of alcohol, which explains the initial warming, fuzzy feeling. It also contains a hefty dose of cannabis extract, which accounts for the gentle, floating sensation and the blurring of anxious thoughts. And for the knockout punch, the ingredient that guarantees that deep, profound sleep, is a generous helping of morphine. You are, in effect, treating your insomnia with a cocktail of booze and narcotics. This was incredibly common. Many of the most popular patent medicines, especially those marketed as soothing syrups for fussy babies or nerve tonics for anxious adults, were laced with opiates, cannabis, cocaine, or chloroform. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, for example, a product given to millions of teething infants, was infamously known by concerned doctors as the baby killer because of its high morphine content, which could easily lead to accidental overdose, addiction, or death. Historians still debate the level of public awareness about these ingredients. While many manufacturers were deliberately deceptive, the intoxicating and addictive properties of opium and morphine were not exactly a secret. Many customers likely knew, or at least suspected, what they were taking and simply didn't care. So desperate were they for relief. They were caught in a trap, trading their sleepless nights for a dangerous and insidious dependency. For now, you are simply grateful. You have found your cure, but you're also finding that you need it every single night. And soon, you notice that 1 tablespoon isn't quite having the same magical effect it once did. Perhaps, you think, you just need to take a little bit more. The secret of Dr. Barton's nerve tonic, and countless remedies like it, was opium. But you wouldn't necessarily think of it in those terms. You weren't a degenerate lurking in a Limehouse opium den, chasing the dragon. You were a respectable person, taking a respectable medicine. The most common form of this medicine, the one that sat in the medicine cabinets of everyone from the Queen herself down to the common laborer, was laudanum. It wasn't a patent medicine with a fancy name. It was a straightforward tincture of opium, a simple mixture of 10% powdered opium dissolved in alcohol. And it was cheaper than gin. Your reliance on the nerve tonic has become a quiet habit, but you're aware of its cost and the slightly disreputable air of a branded cure-all. Seeking a more direct and medical approach, you speak to your chemist, who can sell you laudanum directly, over the counter, with no prescription required. It's sold in small, distinctive bottles, often fluted or hexagonal and made of dark blue or green glass. This was an early piece of safety design, intended to help people identify the poisonous contents by touch in the dark, a grimly practical innovation for a substance used so frequently at night. You bring home your first bottle of laudanum. It feels different from the nerve tonic, more serious. This is not a tonic. This is a drug. The instructions are simple. A certain number of drops in a glass of water or tea. You start with the recommended dose, perhaps 15 drops. The taste is incredibly bitter, a sharp, acrid flavor that the alcohol and sugar in the patent medicine had successfully masked. You chase it with a sip of water, shuddering slightly. Then you wait. The effect of laudanum is different from the muddled cocktail of the tonic. It's cleaner, more direct. First comes a wave of warmth, a profound sense of physical well-being. Any minor aches and pains you might have simply dissolve. The gurgling of your stomach, the persistent chill from your ventilated room, all of it fades into a blissful background hum. Then comes the effect on your mind. It's not just that your anxieties disappear. They are replaced by a feeling of calm, detached intelligence. The writer Thomas de Quincey, in his famous memoir Confessions of an English Opium Eater, described this state with poetic accuracy. He wrote that he felt a sense of abysmal deeps of golden moments, where his mind was not clouded, but sharpened, able to ponder the greatest philosophical questions with a serene, godlike clarity. For you, it's less about pondering philosophy and more about the blessed silencing of your own internal monologue. The worries about the household budget, the social faux pas from last week, the existential dread of another sleepless night. They don't just vanish, they seem irrelevant, petty. You feel a profound sense of emotional insulation. You are safe inside a warm, golden bubble, and the troubles of the world cannot touch you. It is a deeply seductive feeling. This isn't just a cure for sleeplessness. It feels like a cure for life itself. Sleep comes easily in this state. It's a gentle, willing surrender. You don't fall into a heavy, drug stupor. You simply close your eyes and drift away on a calm, warm tide. The dreams you have are often vivid, elaborate, and strange, a well-documented side effect of opium. They can be beautiful, fantastical landscapes, but they can also be tangled, confusing, and architecturally vast nightmares of a kind you've never experienced before. But even a strange dream is better than no sleep at all. You wake up feeling a little dry-mouthed and constipated, the most common and immediate side effects of opium. But you are rested. The problem of insomnia is, for all intents and purposes, solved. Laudanum was the Victorian era's miracle drug, used to treat an astonishing range of ailments: coughs, colds, diarrhea, menstrual cramps, neuralgia, rheumatism, and, of course, simple sadness. Famous figures from Elizabeth Barrett Browning to Charles Dickens used it regularly. It was an integral part of life. One quirky and rather grim tidbit is that laudanum was so common in the fens of eastern England, an area rife with malaria and rheumatism, that mothers would dose their children to keep them quiet, leading to a generation of listless, malnourished, and often addicted children. The practice was so widespread it was known as the Fenland opium habit. The dark side of this miracle cure, however, is insidious. Tolerance builds quickly. The 15 drops that once brought you to that golden, peaceful state soon aren't enough. You need 20, then 30. The line between a therapeutic dose and a recreational one begins to blur. Then, one evening, you consider not taking it, just to see if you can manage. Within hours, the withdrawal begins. A creeping anxiety, far worse than your original condition, starts to set in. You feel a clammy sweat break out on your skin. Your muscles begin to ache, and your stomach cramps painfully. The blissful warmth is replaced by a miserable, bone-deep chill. The world, once held at a safe distance, comes rushing back in, harsh and loud and terrifying. You dose yourself again, quickly. The relief is almost immediate, a wave of warmth that banishes the sickness. And in that moment you understand. You are no longer taking laudanum to fall asleep. You are taking it to feel normal, to keep the horrors of withdrawal at bay. Historians still argue about how the Victorians conceptualized addiction. The term addiction as a medical diagnosis was only just beginning to emerge. For many, it was seen not as a disease, but as a moral failing, a weakness of will. You are now trapped in a respectable, socially acceptable, and utterly devastating cycle of dependency. You are sleeping, yes, but the price of that sleep is getting higher every single night. Your nightly dance with laudanum has become a source of quiet shame and growing fear. The golden bubble of euphoria now feels like a cage, and you know this chemical solution is unsustainable. Desperate for a natural and moral way to cleanse both your body and your spirit, you turn to one of the most popular and formidable health crazes of the mid to late 19th century: hydropathy, water cure. This is not about a relaxing dip in a warm spring. This is a rigorous, shocking, and sometimes brutal system designed to jolt the body back into a state of natural, vigorous health. You decide to commit fully, booking a 2-week stay at a hydropathic establishment, or hydro, in a place like Malvern or Matlock. These were grand, purpose-built spa hotels, often set in stunning, mountainous landscapes. The idea was to remove the patient from the toxic, overstimulating environment of the city and subject them to the restorative powers of nature, fresh air, and, most importantly, copious amounts of cold water, both inside and out. These hydros were a peculiar mix of hospital, hotel, and health club. They attracted a clientele of well-to-do neurasthenics, dyspeptics, and insomniacs, all seeking to be shocked back to life. Leaving your laudanum bottles safely locked away at home, a decision that feels both terrifying and righteous. You arrive at the Hydro. The building is imposing, a Victorian Gothic palace with sweeping views of green hills. The air is crisp and clean, a welcome change from the soupy London fog. You are met by the directing physician, a man with the zealous, unwavering conviction of a true believer. He consults with you, nodding grimly at your tale of sleeplessness and nerve tonics, which he dismisses as fashionable poisons. The answer, he declares, is to reawaken your vital force, which has been suppressed by modern life and chemical aids. The regimen begins at dawn. At 5:30 a.m., a stern-faced attendant, known as a dipper, enters your room. There is no gentle waking. You are instructed to strip and are then subjected to your first treatment, the cold plunge. You are led to a tiled room containing a deep bath filled with shockingly cold water, drawn fresh from the local spring. There's no negotiation. You are expected to plunge in, immersing your entire body for a few seconds. The shock is breathtaking, literally. The cold is so intense it feels like a physical blow. You gasp. Your heart hammers against your ribs, and every nerve in your body screams in protest. You scramble out, shivering violently, your skin bright red. The dipper then hands you a coarse linen sheet and instructs you to rub yourself down vigorously until you are dry and warm. It is, without a doubt, the most unpleasant way you have ever started a day. After this initial shock, you are prescribed a brisk, pre-breakfast walk in the hills, regardless of the weather. Rain or shine, you are expected to stride out, breathing deeply of the pure country air. This is followed by the first meal of the day. The diet at a Hydro is the spiritual successor to the bland regimen you tried earlier, but with a new moral fervor. It consists of simple, natural foods. Wholemeal bread, often incredibly dense and hard. Porridge, fresh fruit, and vegetables. There's no alcohol, no tea, no coffee, and very little meat. And you are expected to drink water. Lots and lots of water. Pitchers of cold spring water are on every table, and you are encouraged to drink at least 8 glasses a day, a practice that was quite unusual for the time. The rest of the day is a highly structured schedule of various water-based treatments. There are dozens of them, with names that sound like medieval tortures. There's the Neptune's girdle, a wet bandage wrapped tightly around the abdomen, to be worn for several hours. There's the douche, where a powerful jet of icy water is directed at a specific part of your body, your spine, your liver, your legs, to stimulate the underlying organs. One particularly quirky treatment was the head bath, where you would lie with the back of your head in a shallow basin of cold water for 10 to 15 minutes to cool the overheated brain. Imagine lying on a hard couch, the back of your skull slowly going numb in a puddle of frigid water, and you get the idea. Historians are divided on the legacy of hydropathy. Some see it as a precursor to modern holistic health practices, emphasizing diet, exercise, and stress reduction. Others view it as pure quackery, a system that, while probably not killing anyone, relied on the placebo effect and the general benefits of a holiday in the country. The one undeniable fact is that it was an intense physical ordeal. In the evening, there are no thrilling novels or exciting card games. Entertainment is sensible and calming. A lecture on phrenology, perhaps, or a sedate concert of chamber music. You are exhausted. The combination of the pre-dawn shock, the vigorous exercise, the Spartan diet, and the endless, bizarre water treatments has left you physically drained. Your body aches in ways you didn't know it could. The cravings for laudanum are still there, a dull hum beneath the surface, but they are drowned out by sheer physical fatigue. As you climb into the simple, hard bed in your Spartan room, you don't feel relaxed or soothed. You feel battered. You have been pummeled, sprayed, soaked, and starved into a state of submission. But as you lie there, listening to the wind whistling outside, you realize your mind is, for the first time in a long time, quiet. It's too tired to worry. It has no energy left for anxiety. Sleep comes not as a gentle visitor, but as a total system shutdown. You have, in a way, found a cure, but you have had to declare war on your own body to achieve it. Your days at the hydro continue in this shocking, Spartan rhythm. You've become accustomed to the pre-dawn plunge and the bracing hill walks, but there is one treatment that you have come to dread above all others. It is the centerpiece of the hydropathic experience, the treatment believed to be the most powerful for calming the nerves and inducing a healing crisis. It is the wet sheet wrap. The name sounds harmless, almost comforting, like being tucked into bed. The reality is anything but. The process takes place in a dedicated treatment room, a plain, tiled space that is kept cool and quiet. Your attendant, the same grim-faced dipper from the morning, prepares for the procedure with a disconcerting efficiency. First, a waterproof covering is laid over a hard, narrow treatment bed. On top of this, several thick woolen blankets are spread out. The final layer is a large linen sheet that has been soaked in icy spring water and then wrung out so it is no longer dripping, but remains shockingly cold and damp. The sight of that pale, clammy sheet is enough to make your teeth chatter in anticipation. You are instructed to undress completely. Then, you lie down on the wet sheet. The initial contact is a full body shock, second only to the morning plunge. The cold is intense and seeps into you instantly, stealing your breath and making every muscle in your body seize up. Before you have a moment to react or escape, the attendant works quickly, wrapping the sheet tightly around you, first one side, then the other, tucking it in so that every inch of your body, from your neck to your toes, is encased in the frigid, damp linen. Your arms are pinned to your sides. You are effectively mummified in cold, wet cloth. But it doesn't stop there. The attendant then takes the woolen blankets and wraps them over the top of the wet sheet, just as tightly, one after another. You are swaddled in layer upon layer of heavy wool, until you are a helpless, immobile bundle. A small pillow is placed under your head, and a final blanket is tucked in around your neck. The attendant then leaves the room, promising to return in an hour. An hour. You are left alone, trapped cold and damp in the silent, tiled room. The first 10 minutes are pure misery. The cold from the sheet seems to leach the very warmth from your bones. You shiver uncontrollably, a deep, internal tremor that shakes your entire cocooned body. It's a deeply unpleasant, claustrophobic sensation. You can't move. You can't even scratch an itch. All you can do is lie there and endure the cold. This initial stage was known as the cooling, or shock phase, intended to draw the body's heat away from the supposedly inflamed internal organs and the overheated brain. Then, gradually, something begins to change. Your body, in its desperate attempt to fight the cold, begins to generate a tremendous amount of heat. The shivering subsides, replaced by a growing, spreading warmth. This is the second stage, the heating phase. The wet sheet, trapped beneath the insulating layers of wool, begins to warm up. The air around your skin becomes humid and steamy. It's like being in your own personal sauna. The initial, shocking cold is replaced by a profound, almost overwhelming heat. A sweat breaks out all over your body, soaking the now warm sheet even further. The dippers would say this was the body cooking the disease and sweating out the toxins and morbid humors. After about 45 minutes of this intense, sweltering heat, you enter the final stage. The heat subsides, and a deep, profound relaxation sets in. Your limbs, once tense with cold and shivering, feel heavy and limp. Your mind, which was initially racing with panic and discomfort, becomes placid and empty. The combination of the initial shock, the subsequent struggle for warmth, and the final, sweltering calm has a powerful sedative effect. It's a physiological surrender. You feel utterly and completely spent, but also strangely peaceful. Some patients would fall into a deep sleep during this final phase. One quirky, lesser-known aspect of the treatment was its application for mental and nervous disorders. It was a common treatment in Victorian asylums, used to restrain and calm manic or hysterical patients. The sheer physical impossibility of moving, combined with the physiological roller coaster of the treatment, was incredibly effective at subduing even the most agitated individuals. There is, of course, a fine line between therapy and restraint, and historians debate whether the primary purpose was to calm the patient or simply to control them. Just as you feel yourself drifting off, the door opens, and the attendant returns. You are unswathed, layer by layer. The woolen blankets are pulled back, releasing a great cloud of steam into the cool air. The wet, now hot, she is unwrapped, and your skin is red, glistening with sweat, and incredibly sensitive. You are then briskly escorted to another treatment, perhaps a quick, cool shower or a rub-down with a coarse towel to close the pores and wash away the expelled toxins. You stumble back to your room, feeling like a wrung-out dish rag. The experience was bizarre, uncomfortable, and strangely intimate. You were rendered as helpless as a baby, swaddled and cared for, yet the process was entirely impersonal and clinical. That night, you sleep a deep, dreamless, and profound sleep, the sleep of pure physical and mental exhaustion. The wet sheet wrap has, in its brutal way, worked. It hasn't soothed your nerves so much as it has beaten them into submission. You have been systematically taken to the edge of your physical endurance and back again, all in the name of a good night's rest. And you have another week of this to go. You return from a hydro feeling scoured, exhausted, and for a little while at least, free from the clutches of both laudanum and insomnia. The Spartan routine of the water cure has reset your system, but as you settle back into the rhythms of city life, the old anxieties begin to creep back in. The stuffy air, the pressures of your social calendar, the sheer noise of it all. It's a stark contrast to the enforced tranquility of the Malvern Hills. Before long, you find yourself once again staring at the ceiling in the lonely hours past midnight. You need a new cure, but you are determined to avoid both the pharmacist's bottle and the dipper's wet sheet. You need something modern, scientific, and above all, something you can use in your own home. You need to enter the age of electricity. The late 19th century was crackling with electrical excitement. The telegraph was connecting the world. Electric lighting was beginning to turn night into day in the cities, and the public imagination was captivated by the invisible, mysterious power of the electric current. It was seen as a force of nature, the very spark of life itself. And if it could power a motor or light a lamp, surely it could restore a faulty human nervous system. This gave rise to a booming industry of medical electrical devices, or electropathy. You see the advertisements everywhere, promising to cure everything from baldness to gout with the simple application of a mild galvanic current. Intrigued, you visit a specialized electric emporium, a shop that feels like a cross between a chemist and a science laboratory. Wires, coils, and strange brass instruments are displayed in glass cases. The proprietor, a man with the fast-talking patter of a showman and the white coat of a scientist, listens to your complaints of sleeplessness and nervous debility. "Ah, a classic case of depleted nerve force," he says, nodding with authority. "Your body's natural electrical balance is disturbed. We simply need to replenish it. He dismisses the dramatic, sparking machines you see in the corner. Those are for doctors. For home use, he recommends something much gentler, an electric belt. These were wildly popular devices. You are presented with a handsome-looking belt made of leather and velvet, but sewn into the fabric are a series of small metal discs, usually zinc and copper. When worn against the skin, the combination of the metals and the slight moisture from your perspiration was supposed to create a tiny electrochemical reaction, a continuous, low-level galvanic current. This gentle, all-day current, the salesman explains, would circulate through your body, soothing your nerves, improving your circulation, and restoring your vital energy. You purchased the belt. It's not cheap, but it feels like a solid, scientific investment. That night, you strap the device around your waist, directly against your skin as instructed. It feels cool and metallic at first. You get into bed, lying very still, trying to feel the promised current. Do you feel a slight tingling? A faint warmth? Or is it just the power of suggestion? It's impossible to tell. The mainstream medical establishment, it should be said, largely dismissed these belts as pure quackery. They argued that any current produced was so infinitesimally small as to be medically useless. The only thing they were likely to cure was a heavy wallet. And yet, you want to believe. You lie there, focusing on the sensation of the belt against your skin, imagining the invisible energy flowing through you, healing your frayed nerves. There's a powerful placebo effect at play. The simple act of wearing a special, scientific device can be profoundly reassuring. The belt becomes a kind of technological talisman. A quirky tidbit of marketing for these belts is that they were often sold with different models for men and women, with the men's versions promising to cure lost manhood, and the women's aimed at hysteria and menstrual problems, a classic example of gendering a supposed universal cure. After a few nights of wearing the belt with little noticeable effect, you decide to escalate your treatment. You return to the Emporium and invest in a more active device, a home battery and electrode kit. This is a small wooden box containing a galvanic battery cell, some coiled wires, and various attachments. It looks intimidatingly complex. The kit comes with a detailed instruction manual, complete with diagrams showing where to place the electrodes for different ailments. For insomnia, the manual suggests a gentle current applied to the back of the neck and the soles of the feet. That evening, you set up your apparatus. You fill the battery cell with the required solution of water and salts. You attach the wires. You place one wet sponge electrode in your cervical spine and hold the other one in your hand or against your feet. Then, with a trembling finger, you turn the dial to low. You feel it immediately, a distinct, prickling, buzzing sensation on your skin. It's not painful, but it is deeply strange. An alien energy is coursing through your body. You are, quite literally, electrifying yourself in your own bedroom. You sit there for the recommended 20 minutes, the machine humming softly, the current buzzing through your nerves. The sensation is all-consuming. It's impossible to think about your anxieties when your primary focus is the bizarre, artificial tingling spreading through your limbs. Historians still argue about whether these weak electrical currents could have had any genuine physiological effect, perhaps by stimulating nerve endings or altering blood flow. Or was it, again, a potent combination of placebo and a powerful, distracting sensory experience? After the treatment, you unhook yourself and get into bed. Your skin still prickles where the electrodes were. You do feel different. Calmer, perhaps. The treatment has replaced your mental buzz of anxiety with the literal, physical buzz. It has, in a sense, fought fire with fire. As you lie in the dark, you feel a certain drowsiness take hold. It's the fatigue that comes after a novel and intense experience. Sleep comes, though it is a slightly restless, twitchy kind of sleep. You've tamed your sleeplessness with the most modern power known to man, turning your bedroom into a private laboratory and yourself into the subject of a strange, buzzing experiment. You just hope you don't short-circuit. The electric belt has become a permanent, if somewhat clammy, part of your nightly attire, and the home battery kit sits on your bedside table, a testament to your commitment to scientific self-improvement. Yet true, deep sleep remains just out of reach. The currents soothe and distract, but they don't seem to be addressing the root of the problem: your overheated and overactive brain. The salesman at the Electric Emporium, ever helpful, has a solution for this, too. You need to apply the electrical cure directly to the source. You need an electric helmet. The device he presents to you is one of the strangest contraptions you have ever seen. It looks like something from a fantastical novel by Jules Verne. It's a metal frame, shaped somewhat like a crown or a helmet, lined with velvet and studded with small metal contact points. Wires trail from it, designed to be connected to your galvanic battery box. The idea, he explains, is to deliver a gentle, soothing current directly to the scalp and skull, thereby calming the turbulent electrical activity of the brain itself. He assures you it's perfectly safe. You carry the device home, feeling a bit foolish. It's one thing to strap a belt around your waist, hidden beneath your nightclothes. It's another thing entirely to sit in your bedroom, wearing a futuristic metal hat. That night, after the children are in bed and the house is quiet, you decide to try it. You connect the wires, moisten the metal contacts as instructed, and gingerly place the helmet on your head. It's heavy and cold. You look at your reflection in the dressing table mirror and have to suppress a laugh. You look like a low-budget king from a provincial stage play, or perhaps a patient from a lunatic asylum in a sensationalist newspaper illustration. With a deep breath, you turn the dial on the battery. A faint, prickling sensation begins all over your scalp. It's an even more peculiar feeling than the electrodes on your neck and feet. It's as if an army of tiny, methodical ants is marching across your skull. You sit bolt upright in your chair, hands clasped in your lap, enduring the strange, tingling treatment. The manual recommends a session of 15 minutes. You close your eyes and try to relax, imagining the gentle current untangling the knots in your nerves, smoothing out the frantic chatter in your mind. Alongside the helmet, you've also purchased another popular cranial device, the electric hairbrush. This was a less intense, but equally popular item. It looks like a normal, high-quality hairbrush, with a handsome wooden handle and natural bristles. But embedded within the wood and bristles are magnetized iron rods or pieces of zinc and copper. There are no wires, no batteries. This is a passive device. The theory is that simply brushing your hair with it will align the magnetic forces of the head, calm the nerves, and stimulate the scalp, supposedly preventing baldness as a happy side effect. It's a classic piece of pseudoscientific marketing. Take a familiar daily ritual and imbue it with magical modern properties. So, after your helmet session, you perform the second part of your new cranial routine. You slowly and methodically brush your hair with the electric brush for 100 strokes, just as the advertisements recommend. The bristles feel pleasant on your tingling scalp. The motion is rhythmic and repetitive, and in itself, quite calming. The act of performing this elaborate, multi-step ritual is becoming a crucial part of the cure. It's a structured, focused activity that leaves no room for your usual worries to intrude. It's a form of active meditation, mediated by bizarre brass and wire technology. Did these devices work? Almost certainly not in the way they were claimed to. There is no evidence that a weak current applied to the scalp can calm the brain, and the magnetic brush was pure theater. However, The psychological effect could be profound. The very strangeness of the treatment, the commitment it required, and the tangible, physical sensations it produced could be a powerful distraction from the intangible nature of anxiety. A quirky, fringe belief at the time, related to this, was the idea of cerebral hygiene. Proponents argued that just as you washed your body, you needed to cleanse your brain of morbid thoughts and nervous excitement, and these electrical gadgets were the tools for the job. Historians still debate the user experience of these strange contraptions. Were people genuinely convinced by the scientific patter, or was there a degree of knowing self-delusion? Were they participating in a kind of therapeutic play acting? For you, sitting there with a tingling scalp and meticulously brushed hair, the why is less important than the what. And what you feel is a strange sense of accomplishment. You have taken active, scientific steps to combat your ailment. You get into bed. Your head feels alive, not anxious or racing, but buzzing with a low-level energy. You lie in the dark, and the sensation slowly fades, leaving behind a kind of neural quiet. It's as if the electrical noise from the helmet has canceled out the mental noise of your insomnia. You are not so much relaxed as you are, he said, like an electrical device that has been turned off and on again. Sleep descends, not as a gentle fog, but as a quiet shutting down of the circuits. You are a modern person, solving a modern problem with modern tools, even if they do make you look utterly ridiculous. The things you do for a good night's sleep. Your bedroom is now a veritable museum of failed and semi-successful cures. You have the lumpy hop pillow in the closet, the foul-smelling valerian root in a jar, and your electrical apparatus sits on a dedicated side table, its wires coiled like sleeping snakes. Yet the perfect, reliable 8 hours of oblivion remains an elusive prize. One evening, while leafing through a popular health journal, one of those publications filled with more certainty than fact, you come across a new theory, one that is not electrical, but magnetic. The article argues, with great conviction, that your sleeplessness might be a simple matter of alignment. You are sleeping in the wrong direction. The theory is based on the idea that the human body is, like a compass needle, sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field. This invisible force, which flows from the North Pole to the South Pole, has a profound and constant influence on our nervous system. A healthy person, the article explains, lives in harmony with this force, but modern life, with its iron-framed buildings and chaotic energies, can disrupt this natural alignment. The cure for your insomnia, therefore, might be as simple as repositioning your bed. The principle is straightforward. You must sleep with your head to the north and your feet to the south, perfectly parallel to the lines of terrestrial magnetism. This allows the Earth's magnetic current to flow through your body in its natural, intended direction, from head to toe. This, in turn, is said to calm the nervous system, improve circulation, and promote deep, restorative sleep. Sleeping with your head to the south, conversely, forces the current to flow backwards through your body, creating nervous irritation and restlessness. And sleeping east to west, perpendicular to the flow, is worst of all, as it creates a short circuit in your body's vital energies, leading to all manner of ailments. It sounds both deeply profound and utterly nonsensical at the same time, but at this point, you are willing to try almost anything, especially a cure that is free. The first step is to acquire a reliable compass. You purchase a small, handsome brass one. That afternoon, you stand in the middle of your bedroom, holding the compass, and watch as the needle quivers and settles, pointing steadfastly north. You look at your bed. It is, as you suspected, positioned east to west, its grand headboard against the western wall, for purely aesthetic reasons. According to the journal, you have been sleeping in the worst possible orientation for years. Now comes the hard part. Your bed is not a simple, lightweight frame. It is a colossal piece of furniture, carved from solid mahogany, with a headboard, a footboard, and heavy side rails. Moving it is a Herculean task, with the help of your long-suffering spouse and perhaps a grumbling housemaid. You begin the process. It involves dismantling the room. The wardrobe must be shifted, the dressing table moved, the washstand relocated. The room becomes a chaotic jumble of furniture as you grunt and shove the monstrous bed frame, scraping the floorboards and knocking against the walls, until it is finally in its new, correct position. Its headboard is now flush against the north wall, the footboard pointing south. The entire layout of the room is now awkward and illogical, all sacrificed in the name of magnetic harmony. This belief was surprisingly widespread, a classic example of folk science blending with new discoveries. The very real and mysterious power of magnetism, demonstrated in compasses and electromagnets, was easily extrapolated to the human body. One of the more quirky fringe extensions of this theory was the magnetized bed. You could purchase special beds with large magnets or iron bars built directly into the frame, designed to create a concentrated magnetic field around the sleeper. Some inventors even patented beds that could be rotated on a central pivot, allowing the user to find their own personal, optimal sleeping direction. That night, you survey your reconfigured bedroom. It feels strange and unfamiliar. You get into your correctly aligned bed. It feels exactly the same. You lie there in the dark, hyper-aware of your new orientation. You concentrate, trying to feel the magnetic currents of the earth flowing through you. Are your feet tingling? Is there a sense of being gently pulled north? Or is it just the lingering exhaustion from having wrestled a quarter-ton of mahogany across the room? You close your eyes. You try to clear your mind. But now a new anxiety creeps in. Did you get the alignment exactly right? Is it pointing true north, or magnetic north? The article was unclear on that point. What if your house's iron plumbing is distorting the local magnetic field? You have replaced your old worries with a new set of obsessive, pseudoscientific ones. Historians still argue about the persistence of such beliefs in an age of increasing scientific rigor. Were they a comfort, a way of feeling a connection to the great, mysterious forces of the planet? Or were they a sign of desperation, a grasping at any theory, no matter how outlandish, that offered a simple, non-chemical solution to a complex problem? As you lie there, you have to admit that the sheer physical effort of the task has left you thoroughly exhausted. Your muscles ache. Your back is sore. You are, once again, tired not because you are relaxed, but because you have been subjected to a physical ordeal of your own making. And as has become a familiar pattern, this exhaustion is, in its own way, effective. You fall into a heavy, dreamless sleep. You have no idea if it's because of the Earth's magnetic field, or simply because you are too tired to do anything else. You are sleeping soundly, facing north, in a room that now makes no architectural sense whatsoever. The things we do to chase away the dark. Your bed is now magnetically aligned. Your electrical devices stand ready. And your knowledge of soporific literature is second to none. You are sleeping, but it's a fragile, hard-won peace. Any disruption, a late dinner party, a worrying letter, a cat knocking something over in the night, is enough to shatter the truce and leave you staring into the darkness again. Your focus now shifts back to the one enemy you can't seem to conquer completely, the air in your room. Your Sheringham valve and Tobin tube are doing their best, but you've read that they are no match for the insidious, invisible poisons that accumulate during the night. You need to purify the very atmosphere you breathe. You become obsessed with the idea of impurities. It's not just the external miasma you fear now, but the internal pollution, the carbonic acid from your own lungs, the anthropotoxins, or poisonous emanations from your skin. and the general effluvia of a sealed room. Your quest leads you to a new category of bizarre bedroom gadgetry, designed not just for ventilation, but for active air purification. Your first purchase is an ozone paper burner. Ozone, that fresh, sharp smell in the air after a thunderstorm, had been identified by scientists and was quickly marketed as a powerful natural purifier. It was believed to be a form of active oxygen that would chemically attack and neutralize all the foul, disease-causing particles in the air. To generate it at home, you could buy special paper strips or powders impregnated with chemicals like manganese dioxide. You light the edge of the paper, and it doesn't burst into flame but smolders slowly, like incense, releasing a faint, metallic, and slightly acrid smell. This is the scent of purification. So, your new bedtime ritual includes lighting a strip of ozone paper and placing it in a ceramic dish on your mantelpiece. The room fills with a thin, blue-gray smoke and that strange, almost painful, clean smell. You sit and breathe it in, imagining it waging a microscopic war against the invisible poisons around you. It's a bit like fumigating your own bedroom every night. The mainstream scientific view on this was, and is, that inhaling ozone is actually quite bad for you, as it can irritate the lungs and respiratory tract. But in the 19th century, that sharp, chemical smell was synonymous with hygiene and health. It was the smell of science winning. But you don't stop there. You come across an even more elaborate device in a scientific journal, Dr. Angus Smith's Muffusilator. This is a truly strange contraption, and a much rarer, more fringe idea than the popular ozone papers. Dr. Smith was a real chemist, deeply concerned with air quality, and he designed this device to wash the air in a room. It consisted of a large glass funnel placed over a basin of water. A small gas jet or lamp burned underneath the basin, warming the water and creating a gentle updraft. This current was supposed to draw the room's air down through the funnel, forcing it to bubble through the water, which would scrub it of its impurities before it was released back into the room. You, being a dedicated amateur scientist of your own sleeplessness, decide to build a simplified version of this. You set up a basin of water on your washstand. Over it, you rig up a large funnel. You place a small, safely contained spirit lamp nearby to create the necessary thermal current. It is a precarious, homemade Rube Goldberg machine for your well-being. The room is now filled with the gentle bubbling of your Muffusilator, the smoldering of your ozone paper, and the ever-present hissing of the gaslight. It is anything but a peaceful, natural environment. It's a laboratory dedicated to the production of sleep. One of the quirkiest beliefs related to air purity was the power of plants, but not in the way we think of it today. While some believed houseplants could help, others feared them. A popular misconception held that plants, while producing oxygen during the day, actually vitiated the air at night, stealing oxygen and releasing poisonous vapors. So, a truly health-conscious Victorian would have all their potted ferns and aspidistras removed from the bedroom before nightfall. You, of course, dutifully have the maid move your parlor palm to the hallway every evening. Historians often see this obsession with air purity as a manifestation of deeper social anxieties. The impurities in the air were a metaphor for the moral and social impurities of the rapidly growing, chaotic cities. By purifying their personal, domestic space, people felt they were creating a small bastion of order and cleanliness against a world they perceived as increasingly polluted and dangerous. You lie in your north-facing bed, in your laboratory of a bedroom, breathing in your washed, ozonated, and hopefully purified air. The combined sensory input is overwhelming. There is the bubbling sound from your Muffusilator, the sharp tang of ozone, the faint warmth from the spirit lamp. It's a full-on assault on your senses, and, as with the electrical helmet, it's profoundly distracting. It's impossible to worry about finances when you're half worried your homemade air washer is about to set the curtains on fire. The air in the room does feel different. It feels heavy, damp, and thick with strange smells. Is it pure? You have no way of knowing. But you have done everything a person can do, short of moving to a mountaintop, to control your atmospheric environment. The sheer effort is, as always, exhausting. You have waged a multi-front war against your insomnia. Dietary, literary, herbal, electrical, magnetic, and now atmospheric. Each battle leaves you more tired, more drained. And so, in your perfectly aligned, thoroughly electrified, and freshly laundered air, you eventually fall asleep. It's the sleep of a weary general after a long and baffling campaign. Your nocturnal laboratory has become a monument to Victorian ingenuity and desperation. You have cleansed your air, aligned your magnetic field, and zapped your nerves into submission. And yet, the core of the problem, the restless, whirring engine of your own mind, remains. The laudanum bottle, though hidden, still calls to you. You confess your struggles to your doctor, who has been following the latest developments in pharmacology. He tells you that opium and its derivatives are now considered old-fashioned, even crude. There's a new class of chemical sedatives, he explains, one that is modern, scientific, and supposedly much safer. He prescribes you potassium bromide. The discovery of bromides in the 1850s was a major event in the history of psychiatry and neurology. Initially used to treat epilepsy, doctors quickly noticed that bromide salts had a profound quieting effect on the central nervous system. They didn't produce the euphoria of opium. Instead, they induced a state of calm, emotional flatness, and lethargy. They were hailed as the first rational sedatives, chemical agents that could reliably depress brain function without the addictive and moral hazards associated with narcotics. Your doctor presents it to you as a scientific marvel, a way to chemically silence the irritable parts of your brain that are preventing sleep. You take your prescription to the chemist. The potassium bromide comes as a crystalline salt or a premixed solution. It is colorless, odorless, and has a salty, slightly unpleasant taste. You are instructed to take a dose, dissolved in water, each evening. It feels very different from buying a bottle of Dr. Barton's nerve tonic or a fluted vial of laudanum. This is a prescription. It feels legitimate, sanctioned by medical science. It's not about pleasure or escape. It's about treatment. That evening, you take your first dose. You mix the salty powder into a glass of water and drink it down. There is no immediate effect. No warm rush, no gentle fuzziness. You simply get into bed and wait. After about an hour, you begin to notice a subtle change. The background noise in your mind, the constant low-level chatter of worries and plans, seems to be turning down in volume. It's not that the thoughts are gone, but they have lost their emotional charge. They feel distant, unimportant. A profound sense of apathy settles over you. You feel heavy, sluggish, and profoundly unenergetic. The desire to move, to even roll over in bed, seems to diminish. Your body feels weighted down, and your mind feels thick. It's the opposite of the sharp, vivid state induced by opium. This is a dull, gray, and profoundly boring state of being, and in that boredom, sleep is not far behind. You don't drift off, you sink. It's a heavy, dreamless, and deeply unrefreshing sleep. You wake in the morning feeling groggy, slow, and emotionally muted. The feeling, known as bromism, can persist well into the next day. You feel calm, yes, but it's the calm of a stagnant pond, not a peaceful lake. Bromides became phenomenally popular, the go-to prescription for a vast array of nervous conditions, including hysteria, anxiety, mania, and, of course, insomnia. They were dispensed in enormous quantities in hospitals, asylums, and private practice. A quirky and rather disturbing tidbit is their widespread use as a chemical restraint. Bromides were routinely given to soldiers, prisoners, and residents of institutions, not just to calm them, but to suppress their libido. The belief that bromides reduced sexual desire was so common that the myth of it being added to tea in the army persists to this day. You continue your nightly bromide dose. The sleep it provides is reliable, but the cost is becoming apparent in your waking hours. You feel slow, your memory is fuzzy, and your emotional responses are blunted. You feel detached, as if you're watching your own life through a pane of thick, dirty glass. Long-term use of bromides could lead to a serious toxic state, characterized by severe acne-like skin eruptions, bromide rash, psychosis, hallucinations, and profound neurological impairment. The safe alternative to opium had its own dark, insidious dangers. Historians are still debating the cultural impact of the bromide sleep. Unlike the vivid, dream-filled sleep of the opium eater, the bromide sleep was often a dark, empty void. Did this widespread chemical dulling of the Victorian subconscious have a broader effect on creativity and culture? It's an unanswerable question, but a fascinating one. For you, the experience is deeply personal. You are sleeping, but you are paying for it with the texture and color of your waking life. You are caught in a new kind of trap. The cure is effective, but it is slowly erasing you. The bright, anxious, sleepless person you were is being replaced by a dull, calm, sleepy automaton. You find yourself looking at your collection of bizarre gadgets, the electric helmet, the magnetic compass, the homemade air washer, with a strange sense of nostalgia. Those cures were eccentric, demanding, and often ridiculous, but they were active. They required you to do things, to participate in your own healing, however misguidedly. This new chemical cure is passive. You just swallow it, and it does its work, silencing you from the inside out. You have finally found a way to reliably quiet your mind, but you're beginning to wonder if you've quieted it too much. The bromide has left you in a state of perpetual gray calm, a life with all the sharp edges sanded down. You sleep, but you feel like a ghost in your own home during the day. This chemical piece feels like a defeat. You stop taking the salty solution, preferring the familiar torment of a racing mind to the dull emptiness of a sedated one. In your search for a new path, you hear whispers of fascinating, theatrical, and slightly scandalous practice, one that claims to heal not with chemicals or contraptions, but with the power of pure suggestion and invisible fluids. You decide to visit a mesmerist. Mesmerism, the forerunner of hypnotism, had been around since the late 18th century, but was enjoying a resurgence of popular interest. It was based on the theories of Franz Mesmer, who proposed the existence of a universal magnetic fluid, or animal magnetism, that flows through all living things. Illness, he argued, was caused by blockages in the flow of this fluid. A trained mesmerist could manipulate this fluid, unblocking the patient's energy channels and restoring health, often by inducing a trance-like state or mesmeric sleep. The practice occupied a strange space between science, medicine, and stage performance. Mainstream doctors largely dismissed it as charlatanism, but it had a huge popular following and was championed by some respectable thinkers. You find a mesmerist who holds private consultations in his well-appointed drawing room. He is not a wild-eyed mystic, but a charismatic, well-dressed gentleman with a soothing voice and an air of profound confidence. The room is dimly lit, warm, and comfortable, designed to put you at ease. He explains the theory to you in calm, reassuring tones. Your sleeplessness, he says, is a classic sign of a disturbance in your nervous fluid. Your brain is like a telegraph office where the operator has fallen asleep and messages are piling up, creating chaos. He can help you restore order. There are no machines, no medicines. It is just you, him, and the power of his trained will. The session begins. You are seated in a comfortable armchair, facing him. He asks you to relax, to breathe deeply, and to fix your gaze on a single object, a crystal, a swinging pocket watch, or simply his eyes. He begins to speak in a low, rhythmic monotone. You are feeling calm. Your eyelids are becoming heavy, so very heavy. You want to close them. You can barely keep them open. At first, you feel self-conscious, even a little silly. You are a rational, modern person, and this feels like a parlor game. But the mesmerist's voice is incredibly persuasive, and the environment is deeply relaxing. You decide to play along, to allow yourself to follow his instructions. You let your eyelids droop and close. He then begins to make mesmeric passes. He holds his hands a few inches from your body and slowly, rhythmically, sweeps them downwards, from your head to your feet, over and over again, without ever touching you. He tells you that he is smoothing your magnetic fluid, drawing the excess nervous energy from your overactive brain down towards your feet, where it can be harmlessly dispersed. You feel something. Is it tingling? A warmth? Or is it simply the result of sitting perfectly still and focusing intently on your own body? A quirky detail from mesmeric lore is that some practitioners would magnetize a glass of water for their patients by making passes over it, infusing it with their healing fluid for the patient to drink later. The power of suggestion was the key ingredient. The mesmerist continues his monologue. You are drifting into a state of profound rest at deep, healing sleep. Your mind is quiet. All your worries are floating away. As he speaks, you do feel a strange sense of detachment. Your limbs feel heavy and leaden, as if they belong to someone else. Your mind, usually a hive of activity, feels calm and strangely empty. You are not asleep, but you are not fully awake either. You are in a suggestible, deeply relaxed state. You can still hear everything, but it feels distant, as if you were listening from the bottom of a deep, calm pool. He then gives you a post-hypnotic suggestion. He tells you that tonight, when you get into bed, you will remember this feeling of profound calm. You will find it easy to drift into a natural, peaceful sleep, and you will wake up feeling refreshed and revitalized. He then slowly brings you back to full awareness. I will count to 3, and when I reach 3, you will open your eyes, feeling calm, rested, and perfectly well. He counts, and you open your eyes. You feel a little dazed, as if waking from a long nap, but also remarkably serene. The entire session has lasted about an hour. Historians see mesmerism and the subsequent development of hypnotism as a critical turning point, the beginning of the talking cures and the psychological understanding of illness. It demonstrated that a person's mental state could be profoundly altered by words and suggestion alone, without any physical intervention. It was the dawn of psychotherapy, wrapped in the mystical language of invisible fluids. That night, you go to bed feeling a sense of calm anticipation. You lie down and, following the mesmerist's instructions, you recall the feeling of deep relaxation from his armchair. You focus on the memory of his soothing voice and the heavy, pleasant feeling in your limbs. Whether it is the power of his animal magnetism or simply the power of your own mind, you find that the usual cycle of anxiety doesn't begin. The memory of the trance acts as a mental shield. You fall asleep. It's a natural, gentle sleep, free from the chemical weight of bromides or the narcotic haze of laudanum. It feels like your own sleep, something you have achieved rather than something that has been forced upon you. You have not been drugged, shocked, or scientifically aligned. You have been persuaded into peace. It feels like magic, but a new kind of magic, the mysterious, uncharted magic of your own mind. The cure, it seems, may have been inside you all along. The mesmerist's cure is a revelation. The power of suggestion has given you several nights of natural, restorative sleep, a feat no gadget or potion has managed to achieve so gently. But the effect you find is not permanent. A particularly stressful day, a social obligation you're dreading, or simply the cumulative fatigue of city life can be enough to overwhelm the fragile post-hypnotic calm. The old enemy returns, and you find yourself lying awake once more. The mesmerist's soothing words a distant, ineffective echo. Your brief foray into the world of psychological healing has been a wonderful holiday, but now you feel you need something with more authority. You need a knockout blow. You return to your doctor, a man who seems to have a new miracle cure for every season. He listens to your story about the mesmerist with a patient, slightly dismissive smile. Suggestion and trance states are all very well for the idle and hysterical, his expression seems to say. But a real, physiological problem requires a real, physiological solution. He tells you about the latest breakthrough in pharmacology, a substance that has none of the addictive properties of opium and none of the toxic side effects of bromide. It is a pure, synthesized hypnotic, designed for one purpose and one purpose only, to induce sleep, quickly and reliably. He writes you a prescription for chloral hydrate, first synthesized in 1832. Chloral hydrate was introduced into medical practice in the late 1860s and was immediately hailed as the perfect sleeping draught. It was a simple compound that, when taken, was metabolized in the body into a potent sedative. Unlike opium, it wasn't an analgesic, it didn't kill pain. Unlike bromide, it wasn't a general system depressant. It was marketed as a pure hypnotic. Its action was swift and decisive. It would, quite simply, put you to sleep. You take your new prescription to the chemist. The chloral hydrate is dispensed as a syrupy liquid or as crystals to be dissolved in water, often mixed with syrup or licorice to mask its acrid, slightly caustic taste and pungent, pear-like smell. The chemist handles it with a certain reverence. This is modern science, a scalpel for the mind where opium was a sledgehammer. He warns you to be very precise with the dosage. That night, you measure out your prescribed dose with the care of a research scientist. The syrupy liquid is slightly unnerving. It looks potent. You mix it with a little water and drink it down. The taste is still sharp and unpleasant, and it creates a burning sensation in your throat and stomach, a well-known side effect. You quickly get into bed, a sense of nervous anticipation running through you. This is supposed to be the one, the final answer. You don't have to wait long. Within 15 to 20 minutes, a powerful wave of drowsiness washes over you. It's not a gentle, creeping sleepiness like you get from laudanum or a calming tea. It is a chemical command. Your limbs become incredibly heavy. Your thoughts dissolve into a thick fog, and your consciousness simply switches off. There's no gentle descent, no drifting. It's like a light being extinguished. You are awake one moment and unconscious the next. This is the infamous substance that gained a notorious reputation as knockout drops or a Mickey Finn. Its ability to render a person unconscious so quickly and completely made it the drug of choice for criminals looking to incapacitate their victims. A dose slipped into a drink in a tavern could put a man out for hours, leaving him vulnerable to robbery. One quirky and rather dark piece of history is that chloral hydrate was a popular method for both suicide and homicide in the late 19th century due to its potency and accessibility. The line between a therapeutic dose and a lethal one was dangerously thin. You wake up abruptly 8 hours later. There is no gentle stirring or morning grogginess. It's like the light switch being flicked back on. You are instantly awake, but you feel terrible. You have a splitting headache. Your stomach is churning with nausea, and you feel confused and disoriented. It was not sleep. It was a period of chemically induced unconsciousness. Your body has been resting, but your mind feels like it has been through a battle. It's the physiological equivalent of being knocked out in a fist fight and waking up in an alleyway, despite the horrific hangover. You cannot deny its effectiveness. It worked. It delivered a solid block of oblivion when you needed it most. So, you tried again a few nights later, perhaps with a slightly smaller dose. You learned to manage the side effects, to plan for the unpleasant morning after. The chloral hydrate becomes your emergency weapon, the cure you turn to when all else fails. Historians often mark the arrival of chloral hydrate and the subsequent barbiturates as the beginning of the modern era of sleep medicine. The focus shifted decisively from soothing and calming to actively inducing unconsciousness. It was a move away from gentle persuasion and toward a chemical override of the body's natural processes. You are living right at the cusp of this change. You have tried the herbs of your grandmother's generation, the pseudoscientific gadgets of your own, and now you hold in your hands the potent, synthesized chemicals of the future. You have solved the problem of sleeplessness, but you have done so by declaring sleep an enemy to be drugged into submission, not a friend to be gently welcomed. And as you stare at the bottle of chloral hydrate on your nightstand, you can't help but feel that something profound has been lost in the exchange. Your experiments with chloral hydrate have left you with a deep ambivalence. The drug is brutally effective, but the price, chemical hangover, the sense of having been artificially switched off, feels too high for regular use. It sits in your medicine cabinet as a last resort, a testament to modern science's power and its lack of grace. You find yourself longing for something simpler, something mechanical and gentle, a cure that rocks you to sleep rather than knocking you out. Your search for this gentler alternative leads you into the fascinating world of kinetic cures and peculiar bed inventions. One evening, browsing through a copy of Scientific American or a similar popular journal of inventions, you see an illustration that captivates you. It's an advertisement for Dr. Haydine's rocking bed hammock for invalids and insomniacs. The drawing depicts a person sleeping peacefully, suspended in a sort of hybrid bed and hammock contraption, a complex-looking frame of wood and canvas designed to provide a constant, gentle, rocking motion throughout the night. The accompanying text extols the virtues of emulating the soothing motion of the cradle, arguing that this primal, rhythmic movement is nature's own sedative. The idea resonates deeply. It's not about drugging the brain or purifying the air. It's about tapping into a fundamental, comforting physical sensation. This is a return to first principles. You are too practical, and perhaps too frugal, to order the expensive, patented device. But you are an experienced veteran of homemade cures. You decide to create your own version. Your project begins with your existing, magnetically aligned, and monstrously heavy mahogany bed. The goal is not to rock the entire bed frame, a task that would require an engineering miracle, but to create a rocking motion within it. Your idea is to build a suspended internal frame. You procure 4 strong, coiled springs, the kind used in upholstery or carriages. With great effort, you and a hired carpenter attach these springs to the 4 corners of the sturdy inner ledge of your bed frame, the lip that normally supports the mattress slats. Then, you construct a new, slightly smaller and lighter wooden frame that hooks onto these springs. Your mattress will sit on this new, suspended platform. The result is a bed within a bed. When you sit or lie down on it, the mattress sags and sways gently on the springs. Any movement you make is amplified into a slow, oscillating bounce. It's a bit like sleeping on a very, very gentle waterbed. It takes some getting used to. The first time you get into it, the unexpected wobble is disconcerting. You feel a bit like you're at sea, but as you lie still, you begin to appreciate the effect. The bed reacts to your own breathing, creating a subtle, rhythmic rise and fall. If you give a slight push with your foot, you can set off a long, slow, rocking motion that continues for several minutes. This wasn't just a fringe idea. Inventors in the 19th century were obsessed with creating soporific or somnolent beds. A quirky and more extreme version of this was the centrifugal bed, a device patented by a British inventor. It was a circular bed mounted on a turntable that would rotate slowly, supposedly inducing sleep through a combination of gentle motion and mild centrifugal force. Historians debate whether any of these were ever commercially successful or if they were just curiosities born of a restless inventive spirit, but they show a clear desire to find a mechanical, non-chemical solution to sleeplessness. That night, you lie in your newly modified bed. You give a gentle push and set yourself rocking. The motion is slow, predictable, and deeply soothing. It reminds you of being on a swing or in a boat on a calm lake. It's a mindless, physical sensation that occupies a part of your brain that might otherwise be worrying. The gentle creak of the springs becomes a soft, rhythmic counterpoint to the ticking of the clock. It is the exact opposite of the violent shock of the hydro's cold plunge or the chemical sledgehammer of chloral hydrate. This is a cure based on gentle physics. You find yourself coordinating your breathing with the slow rocking of the bed. Inhale as you rise, exhale as you fall. The focused, rhythmic activity is profoundly meditative. Your body, not just your mind, is being lulled into a state of peace. The anxieties that usually feel so sharp and immediate seem to float away, their urgency diminished by the constant, gentle motion. You drift off to sleep. It's a peaceful, natural sleep, and when you wake briefly in the night to shift position, the bed's gentle sway helps you drift back off again easily. You wake in the morning feeling not just rested, but soothed. Your body feels relaxed in a way it hasn't since the mesmerist's chair. You have turned your bed, the very stage of your nightly suffering, into a therapeutic device. This mechanical solution is not perfect. The springs will eventually wear out. A particularly restless night could turn the gentle rocking into a chaotic bouncing. But for now, you have found a quiet, kinetic harmony. You have surrounded yourself with a symphony of gentle, repetitive motion. You have, in essence, built yourself a giant, adult-sized cradle. In the relentless, forward-marching, industrial world of the 19th century, you have found solace by regressing to the most basic comfort imaginable, proving that sometimes the most innovative solution is the one that takes you right back to the very beginning. Your spring-loaded, rocking bed has brought a new level of physical comfort to your nights, but the underlying nervous exhaustion persists. You are a connoisseur of cures, a veteran of countless treatments, yet you still feel fundamentally depleted. Your insomnia is not just a symptom, it's a sign of a deeper malaise. This is when your doctor, who seems to view your case as a personal challenge, proposes the most radical, all-encompassing, and fashionable treatment of the late 19th century, the rest cure, as pioneered by the celebrated American neurologist Drive S. Weir Mitchell. This is not the gentle, voluntary rest you've been seeking. This is an extreme, medically enforced regimen of absolute bodily stillness and massive overfeeding. Dr. Mitchell developed his cure primarily for women suffering from hysteria, neurasthenia, and other nervous disorders. He theorized that these conditions were caused by a profound depletion of the body's fat and blood reserves, leading to an undernourished and irritable nervous system. The only way to rebuild this vital capital, he argued, was to eliminate all forms of physical and mental exertion and simultaneously flood the body with nutrition. The rest cure is a serious, long-term commitment, typically lasting 6 to 8 weeks, and it must be done in isolation. You are to be removed from your home, your family, your duties, and your social life. These familiar environments, Dr. Mitchell believed, were filled with the very stresses and emotional triggers that caused the illness. So you are installed in a private nursing home or a quiet, rented room under the care of a single, authoritative nurse who will enforce the regimen without sentiment. The cure begins. On the first day, you are put to bed, and you are not allowed to leave it. For anything, you are forbidden to stand, to walk, or even to sit up. For the next 6 weeks, your entire world will be the four corners of your mattress. Your muscles, which you have so recently been toning with brisk walks at the hydro, are now sentenced to complete inactivity. The goal is to reduce your body's expenditure of energy to absolute zero. You are not even allowed to perform the smallest tasks for yourself. You are to be washed, dressed, and have your hair brushed by the nurse. You are not permitted to read, to write, or to engage in any stimulating conversation. The mind, like the body, must be at absolute rest. This enforced idleness is, at first, a profound shock to your system. You, a busy person with a household to manage and a life to lead, are now rendered as helpless and passive as an infant. Then comes the second pillar of the cure, the feeding. Every 2 hours, the nurse brings you food. It starts with milk. You are to drink enormous quantities of it, up to 4 pints a day, sipped slowly. After a few days, the diet expands, but it is all rich, fattening, and easily digestible. Raw beef soup, scrambled eggs, bread and butter, boiled chicken, and, of course, more milk. You are force-fed, gently but relentlessly, far beyond the point of hunger. The goal is a rapid and significant weight gain, what Dr. Mitchell called creating a flood of new flesh. He believed that fat is the vehicle of force, and by making you fat, he was literally rebuilding your strength. A quirky but central element of the treatment was massage and electrical stimulation. Since your muscles were not being used, they would atrophy. To prevent this, the nurse or a visiting masseuse would knead and rub your limbs daily, and your muscles would be stimulated with the same kind of galvanic battery you once used on yourself, forcing them to contract and relax. So you lie there, a passive recipient of food and electricity, your body being managed and manipulated as if it were a machine being repaired. The rest cure was famously and devastatingly depicted in Charlotte Perkins Gilman's short story, The Yellow Wallpaper. Gilman herself underwent the cure and found it drove her to the brink of a complete mental breakdown. For an intelligent, creative woman, the enforced passivity and intellectual starvation were a form of torture. The treatment was deeply paternalistic, built on the idea that the female patient was a weak, irrational creature who needed to be controlled and remade by a firm, male physician. Historians continue to debate the meaning and effect of the rest cure. Was it a therapeutic breakthrough that genuinely helped some profoundly exhausted women? Or was it a tool of social control, designed to enforce traditional gender roles by curing women of their intellectual ambitions and anxieties? For you, lying in that quiet, isolated room, the experience is a strange mix of misery and peace. The boredom is immense. The loss of autonomy is humiliating. Yet, there is a strange liberation in it. For the first time in years, you have no responsibilities. You don't have to decide what to eat, what to wear, or what to do. Every decision is made for you. Your racing mind, deprived of any stimulus or problem to solve, gradually slows down. The constant, low-level hum of anxiety begins to fade, replaced by a profound, bovine placidity. You are gaining weight. Your face is fuller, your limbs softer. You sleep. You sleep for long, deep, dreamless stretches, both day and night. It's the heavy, profound sleep of an overfed infant. You are not being soothed or persuaded into sleep. You are being fattened into it. You have been completely deconstructed, reduced to your most basic biological functions. The question that lingers in the quiet, empty hours is whether, after 6 weeks of this, there will be anything left of the person you were to put back together again. The rest cure is over. You have been disassembled and fattened like a prize pig, and now you are released back into the world, blinking in the bright, noisy sunlight of everyday life. You are heavier, calmer, and profoundly changed by the experience of total passivity. But your doctor, a man who believes in thoroughness, has one final prescription to consolidate the benefits of the cure and prevent a relapse. He prescribes a change of scenery. Not a short trip to the country, but a long, arduous sea voyage. The prescription of travel, particularly a long ocean journey, was a common 19th century treatment for a wide range of nervous and pulmonary ailments. The idea was multifaceted. First, it was the ultimate form of removal from the stresses of home. On a ship in the middle of the ocean, you are utterly disconnected from your daily life. There are no letters to answer, at least not quickly. No social calls to make. No household crises to manage. It is an enforced isolation far more complete than any nursing home. Second, the sea air itself was considered to be a powerful tonic. It was believed to be pure, free from the miasmas and pollutants of the land, and saturated with restorative ozone and salty brine. Breathing this air for weeks on end was thought to cleanse the lungs, enrich the blood, and invigorate the entire system. So, you find yourself preparing for a voyage, perhaps to Australia, to India, or even just a long, meandering trip around the Mediterranean. Your trunks are packed, your farewells are said, and you board the ship. It's a steamship, most likely, a marvel of modern engineering, but still a small, self-contained world that will be your home for the next 2 months. The initial excitement is quickly replaced by the grim reality of sea travel. The ship is a place of constant noise. The relentless, thrumming vibration of the steam engine, the creaking of the ship's timbers, the shouting of the crew, and the perpetual rush of wind and water. Then comes the motion. Your spring-loaded bed was a gentle cradle. This is a chaotic, unpredictable lurching. The ship rolls from side to side and pitches from bow to stern. This constant, disorienting movement leads, inevitably, to seasickness. For the first week, you are utterly miserable, confined to your small, stuffy cabin, unable to eat, your body racked with nausea. This initial phase is so unpleasant that some doctors actually considered it a beneficial part of the cure, a purging of the system. A quirky and rather grim tidbit is that some travel guides of the era recommended a preemptive dose of laudanum or even champagne to ward off the initial bout of mal de mer. Once you find your sea legs and the nausea subsides, you can begin to experience the supposed therapeutic routine of ocean life. The days are marked by a profound and enforced monotony. There's nothing to do but sit on the deck, wrapped in blankets, and stare at the endless, empty horizon of water and sky. You watch the seabirds. You watch the changing colors of the water. You watch the clouds. The sheer scale of the ocean has a strange effect on your psyche. Your own problems, which seem so large and all-consuming back in London, feel small and insignificant against the vast, indifferent backdrop of the sea. The routine is simple. You take breakfast. You sit on the deck. You take lunch. You sit on the deck. You take dinner. You try to read in the dim, swaying light of a cabin lamp. There are no distractions. The apathetic calm you cultivated during the rest cure deepens into a profound, sun-drenched, sea-sprayed boredom. Your mind, with nothing to latch onto, becomes as vast and empty as the ocean itself. Historians often analyze the Victorian travel cure as a form of therapeutic exile. It was a way of removing difficult or inconvenient individuals, often women who didn't conform to social norms from society under the guise of medical treatment. By sending you halfway across the world, your family and doctor were effectively washing their hands of your difficult nervous condition. You sleep. You sleep for long hours, rocked by the constant motion of the ship. It's a deep, heavy sleep, induced by a combination of factors: the fresh air, the immense boredom, the physical fatigue of simply staying upright on a moving vessel, and the sheer lack of anything else to do. The constant thrum of the engine, which was so irritating at first, becomes a hypnotic white noise, a mechanical lullaby that vibrates through the very structure of your bed. You are healing, perhaps, but it is a strange, passive kind of healing. You are not actively solving your problems. You are simply outrunning them, putting thousands of miles of ocean between you and the sources of your anxiety. You have been rested, fattened, and now shipped off to the far corners of the earth. You've become a parcel, passed from one cure to the next. As you stand on the deck one evening, watching the sun sink below the perfectly flat horizon, you feel a profound sense of peace. But a question lingers in the salty air. What will happen when the ship finally docks, and you have to step back onto solid ground? Your long sea voyage comes to an end. You step onto the dock, your legs unsteady after months at sea, feeling like a stranger in a familiar land. You are rested. You are calm. But you are also acutely aware that none of the fundamental conditions of your life have changed. The city is still noisy. Your social obligations are still demanding, and the potential for sleepless nights still lurks like a shadow. All your cures, the diets, the gadgets, the drugs, the rests, the travels, have been elaborate attempts to manage a symptom. They have been repairs made to the engine of your body, but no one has yet asked what is truly driving it. And then you begin to hear of a new and revolutionary way of thinking, emerging from the consulting rooms of Vienna and Zurich. A new idea that suggests your insomnia may not be physical at all. This new way of thinking, which will eventually come to be called psychoanalysis, proposes a radical notion that your sleeplessness, your neurasthenia, your anxieties, are not caused by a sluggish stomach, bad air, or depleted nerve force. They are symptoms of a conflict raging in a part of your mind that you are not even aware of: the unconscious. The pioneers of this field, figures like Sigmund Freud and his contemporaries, are suggesting that your waking thoughts and nighttime torments are driven by repressed memories, hidden desires, and unresolved childhood conflicts. You managed to get your hands on a translated essay or a book summarizing these new theories. It is dense, strange, and full of unfamiliar terms like ego, libido, and the Oedipus complex. It's a world away from the simple, mechanistic explanations you are used to. The idea that your sleeplessness could be linked to a forgotten jealousy you felt towards your sibling as a toddler, or a deeply buried desire that your conscious, moral mind finds unacceptable, is both bizarre and weirdly compelling. This is the dawn of modern psychology, and it represents a monumental shift in understanding the human condition. It turns the focus inward, away from the physical body and into the murky, uncharted territory of the mind itself. The cure these new psychoanalysts propose is not a medicine or a machine, but talk, through a long series of conversations, by exploring your dreams, your slips of the tongue, and your free associations. A trained analyst can help you uncover these hidden conflicts, bring them into the light of consciousness, and thereby rob them of their power to disrupt your life and your sleep. You think back on your dreams, the strange, architectural nightmares you had on laudanum, the vivid and fantastical dreams from the mesmerist's trance. You had always dismissed them as meaningless froth, the random firings of a resting brain. Now you read that they are the royal road to the unconscious, coded messages from the hidden part of yourself. That recurring dream you have about being unprepared for an important examination, it might not be about the exam at all, a manifestation of a deeper feeling of inadequacy or fear of judgment. A quirky and telling detail of this new practice is the couch. The patient lies on a couch, not facing the analyst, to encourage a state of relaxed, unself-conscious free association, allowing thoughts to bubble up from the unconscious without the censoring gaze of another person. It's a furniture choice that speaks volumes about the new therapeutic relationship. You are no longer a passive patient being acted upon by a doctor. You are an active participant in your own deep, archaeological dig of the self. You don't necessarily book a session with an analyst. The practice is still fringe, expensive, and faintly scandalous, but the ideas themselves begin to percolate in your mind. You start to observe yourself in a new way. You pay attention to your own slips of the tongue. When you call a rival by the wrong name, is it just an accident or a sign of a hidden hostility? You start to think about your insomnia not as a malfunction, but as a message. What is it that you are so afraid of letting your guard down for? What thoughts or feelings are you keeping at bay by staying consciously, vigilantly awake? Historians see this moment as a profound turning point. The purely physical explanations for mental distress, which had dominated the 19th century, were beginning to give way to psychological ones. The patient was no longer just a collection of organs to be purged, electrified, or fattened. The patient had a story, a personal history, a complex inner world that was the true source of their suffering. This new knowledge is unsettling. It's much easier to blame your sleeplessness on a poorly ventilated room or an improper diet. Those are external problems with tangible solutions. To accept that the problem lies deep within the very structure of your personality is a far more daunting prospect. There's no simple gadget or a single prescription for that. The cure is long, difficult, and requires a level of self-scrutiny you have never attempted before. You lie in your rocking bed, in your magnetically aligned room, and for the first time, you don't try to silence your racing thoughts. You listen to them. You follow them, without judgment, to see where they lead. You are beginning a new kind of journey, not across the ocean, but into the vast, mysterious continent of your own mind. The sleeplessness hasn't vanished, but its nature has changed. It is no longer a physical enemy to be defeated, but a complex, coded message waiting to be understood. The 19th century is drawing to a close. The gaslights on your street are slowly being replaced by the brighter, steadier glare of electric bulbs. The clip-clop of horses is now mingled with the occasional chugging and backfiring of a horseless carriage. You are older now. Your hair is perhaps streaked with gray, and the face that looks back at you from the mirror is etched with the fine lines of a life lived, a life that has included a long and exhausting war with the night. Your bedroom is a quiet testament to that long campaign. The strange gadgets have been put away, gathering dust in the attic. The bottles of patent medicines and prescriptions are long gone. The rocking mechanism of your bed has been dismantled. It is just a room again. You sit by your window, looking out at the changing world, and you reflect on the sheer strangeness of your journey. You think back to the person you were, so many years ago, convinced that a boiled mutton diet could cure a troubled mind. You remember the taste of the valerian tea, the pungent smell of the hot pillow, the way the damp, cold sheet felt as it was wrapped around you at the hydro. You can almost feel the phantom tingling of the electric helmet on your scalp and the heavy, sluggish feeling of the bromide in your veins. Each cure, each theory, seemed so logical and full of promise at the time. Each was the modern, scientific answer. Now they seem like relics from a distant, superstitious past. Your long quest for sleep was, in many ways, a tour of the Victorian mind itself. It was a mind obsessed with order, with mechanism, with purity. It saw the body as a machine that could be tinkered with, a system that could be flushed out, a battery that could be recharged. It was a mind that had a profound faith in progress, believing that a new invention, a new chemical, a new theory was always just around the corner, ready to solve the oldest of human problems. But it was also a mind deeply anxious about the very progress it celebrated. The diagnosis of neurasthenia, that sickness of the nerves from the frantic pace of modern life, was the key that unlocked your entire journey. Your sleeplessness was seen as a disease of civilization. You have lived through a veritable parade of solutions. The dietary cures that treated your brain like an extension of your stomach. The atmospheric cures that saw the air as a toxic soup to be filtered and washed. The herbal cures that looked to the ancient wisdom of the garden. The chemical cures, from the narcotic bliss of opium to the dull thud of bromide and the knockout punch of chloral hydrate, which promised peace through chemistry. The electrical and magnetic cures that try to tame the mind with the invisible forces of physics. The kinetic cures that sought to rock you back to an infantile calm. The rest and travel cures that try to solve the problem by removing you from your own life. And finally, the talking cure, the whisper from the century to come, which suggested the problem wasn't in your stomach or your nerves or the air, but in your story. A quirky final thought occurs to you. In all those years, through all those cures, the one thing no doctor ever seriously suggested was that you might simply need to worry less. The idea of managing stress or practicing mindfulness was a century away. The solution was always to do something, to add a substance or a machine or a regimen. The concept of solving the problem by taking things away, by simplifying, by letting go, was utterly foreign. Historians will look back at this era and see the seeds of our own time. Our obsession with sleep tracking apps, with weighted blankets, with white noise machines and herbal supplements, it's all a direct echo of your journey. We are still tinkering, still searching for the perfect gadget or pill that will grant us the peace of a quiet mind. You still have bad nights. Insomnia is not a disease to be cured like an infection. You've come to understand it as a companion, one that sometimes visits and sometimes stays away. But you no longer fear it in the same way. You have learned its contours. You no longer see it as a physical malfunction, requiring a drastic intervention. You see it now as a signal, a message from a deeper part of yourself, that something is out of balance. Sometimes, on a restless night, you simply get up. You make a cup of simple, non-soporific chamomile tea. You sit in your chair and you listen to the silence of the house, not as an enemy, but as a quiet space in which to think. You have survived a century of cures, and what you have learned, in the end, is a quiet form of acceptance. You have made a fragile peace with the night. The new century has dawned, bringing with it new noises, new anxieties, and, you are sure, a whole new cabinet of marvelous, modern, and ultimately misguided cures for the simple, timeless problem of being a human being, lying awake in the dark. And so, your long journey through the strange and often uncomfortable landscape of Victorian remedies comes to a gentle close. The memory of the gadgets and the potions begins to fade, like the details of a peculiar dream upon waking. The frantic search for a cure gives way to a quiet stillness, a simple acceptance of the ebb and flow of rest. The room around you is no longer a laboratory or a battlefield, but simply a quiet, safe space. There are no more experiments to conduct, no more theories to test. There's only the soft weight of your blankets, the steady, rhythmic sound of your own breathing, and the deep, welcoming silence of the night. The anxieties of the past have been put to rest, their stories told. And now, there is nothing left to do but let go. Allow the last vestiges of these stories to dissolve into the darkness. leaving behind only a profound and peaceful calm. Your own journey for tonight is over. It is time to rest. It is time to sleep.